Thank you very much, Ajahn Papan. Good morning, everyone. What I'm going to do in the next 30 minutes is to give you an updated and review a number of challenges and advances in antiretroviral therapy in adults. This is my disclosure. So I think probably you have heard in many talks at last couple of days and many other conferences. To treat a patient adult with art is come to the issue of when to start, what to start, how to start, and how to switch. And then we cannot ignore is the real world setting and the future trend and challenges. So that's what the outline that I'm going to cover. I think right now it's very clear to all the guidelines that we should start art at any CD4 cell count. This is based on a number of clinical trials because the strong evidence has been support to early treat people with ART. The first trial is the START trial, and you can see that it's about up to 60% serious events and death reduction compared to the control arm, particularly on tuberculosis, Kaposi sarcoma, and lymphoma. And the other trial is a Temprano. Again, is about 40% reduction of death and severe illnesses. More importantly, besides the clinical benefit for the individual taking ART, is the prevention to the discordant partner. This is about more than 90% or up to 100% reduction in transmission in the HPTN or 5-2 trial. And you have seen in the last decade that a number of studies in Europe and in Uganda have shown that the life expectancy has been also improved significantly close to normal. This is one of the data very compelling from Asia. Particularly, this is done with by Kun Pui, a PhD, just recently graduated. Congratulations, probably she's still here, and the audience. So this is the study that we use the National AIDS Program's database, a big database. It's more than 200,000 individuals, registered to the National AIDS Programs. And you can see that if an individual's age 20 and start ART with the CD4 at least or more than 350, you can see that another 60 years add on. This means the life expectancy is about 80. So it's fairly convincing that regardless of the ethnics, it's clearly that art has a long-term benefit. So what to treat? Let me give you an update, an overview of what available of the ART regimen. But again, keep in mind that what I'm showing to you is majority available in high-income country. So basically, when you want to combine ART as a regimen, you pick one NRTI, so we call NUC, one from this group, and one from this group. So you can use TAF plus FTC or 3TC, TDF, FTC 3TC, or abacavir 3TC in particular in a single tablet regimen. And combined with integrase inhibitors, there's 3 available, dolutegravir, elvitegravir, and raltegravir. But elvitegravir needs to be boosted by cobicistat. Or you can combine with any of protease inhibitor or NNRTI. So they have 2 NNRTI available, efavirenz and lepivarine. Now, let's look at some key characteristic of each class as a third drug for the ART. Tolerability, integrase inhibitor is the best. Ripivirine at NNRTI is also very good. In terms of genetic resistant barrier, the highest one is dolutegravir, protease inhibitor, the rest is quite low. In terms of available as a single pill regimen, many of them are available. You see dolutegravir, abacavir, efavirenz, ripivirine. Initially, we could say that none in the protease inhibitor, but just recently, a few months ago, in Europe, so they also, EMA has recently approved one regimen is a dolutegravir, cobicistat TAF FTC. So at least one available, but not just in the US. In terms of drug-drug interaction, dolutegravir, lopinavir, the best in terms of less and a few drug interaction issue. So let's look a little bit more detail in integrase inhibitor regimen. So there are actually 3 regimens that become as a single pill. So look at abacavir, 3TC, dolutegravir, TAF, FTC, elvitegravir, cobicistat, and TDF, FTC, elvitegravir, cobicistat. But you also can select a co-formulate NUCs plus one of the integrase inhibitors. So either TDF, FTC, dolutegravir, or lopinavir, and TAF. Lopinavir has recently approved as a once daily, but in most countries still you need to do twice daily with 400 milligram BID. Let's talk a bit on TAF. There's a number of special considerations. The good thing is that because the potency and target mainly within lymphocytes, so you can reduce the dose more than tenfold. So without a boost regimen, you require only 25 milligrams versus TDF, you need 300 milligrams, so it's a smaller pill. And if it boosts, you need 10 milligrams. Only 10 milligrams is enough. And be careful that TAF cannot be used in like rifampicin, like lifabutine and lifapentine containing anti-TB regimen, and also some of the anticonvulsants. More importantly, you should not consider to use TAF FTC as a PrEP because the data is not yet available, and it's probably a concern in terms of the tissue level of TAF in the target, either the cervical, vaginal, and rectal tissue is low compared to TDF. Dolutegravir have a number of clinical trials have shown mostly superior than other class of ARV. Like Spring, like Flamingo area have shown that superior than efavirenz, dolutegravir boosted, and atazanavir boosted. Lopinavir has been shown in long term superior than the efavirenz, and ACTG 5257 have shown lopinavir is superior than the other 2 boosted PI. What about a single pill regimen of NNRTI? You have efavirenz containing ripivirine and TAF FTC ripivirine containing regimen. Protease inhibitors, as I said, that is only one regimen has been licensed or approved by the EMA recently, but the rest you need to do a separate pill with the co-formulated 2 NUC. When we talk about booster, so what the difference between the booster? Ritonavir, cobicistat, Look at the dose, very similar, 100 milligram for ritonavir to boost a PI, 150 cobicistat. Co-formulation, there's no co-formulation, there's a whole 3-in-1 or 4-in-1 pill with ritonavir, but available with cobicistat. In terms of CYP450 inhibitors, well, it's the same. Drug-drug interaction, the same. The risk to increase lipid level is a bit higher in the ritonavir compared to cobicistat. And you look at the pill size, because of the more recent ARV is more potent, and you can dose with a much smaller dose, so maybe 10 or 15-fold smaller. You look at if you go with TAF, FTC, and lepivaline is the smallest pill you can see. Now, what the preferred regimen based on various guidelines? This is a European guideline. 2 NOC plus either one of the integrase inhibitor or boosted PI, mainly darunavir or lepivaline. So European guidelines still, prefer using more than one class. But if you look at the US guideline and the IAS USA guideline, only one class is preferred. Now, the real world, resort limited setting. WHO still go with efavirenz. Southern Africa still efavirenz. Thailand also efavirenz, lepivaline. Although the Southern African guideline recommend that if available, particularly in some private sector, dolutegravir is recommended. Now, and in reality, many parts of the world, only single pill regimen is efavirenz containing regimens. But in Thailand, lepivaline is very popularly used, particularly in people with high CD4, but we still have to do a split tablet. So co-formulate TDF FTC plus lepivaline, and very commonly used in Thailand. And again, although in the real world that we didn't be able to get access to integrase inhibitor, particularly dolutegravir, if you look at the data, the clinical trial data, NNRTI is not a bad one, but it's have something better if we can be accessible to dolutegravir. You can see the data across the trial. NNRTI still very good in terms of the percentage of biological suppression, more than 80% in general. Now, how to start ART? It's a number of factors. When you know when to start, you know what you have in hand, and then there's a number of factors to consider. I think the first important thing is, although we try to do one day ART or a bit later, but I think most importantly is the commitment and the treatment adherence of that individual. So we make sure that they're ready to go, they're really committed to go, and they understand well the side effects and the consequence of drug-drug interaction and so on. The second thing we have to consider about the active opportunistic infection. So we have to make sure that we explore and investigate whether they really have any active OI, because that will, if you start ART very early, you might have a problem of Irish syndrome. Baseline HIV drug resistant, I'm going to touch on a little bit later. Underlying chronic diseases if that individual may have, either chronic kidney disease, liver disease, heart, or lipid elevation. Co-infection, particularly viral, hepatitis B and C, and drug-drug interaction concern, and unfortunately cause, even in the high-income country, some of them still suffering in terms of this cost issue. Now, do we need to do baseline drug-resistant testing? So it really depends on the pre-treatment HIV drug resistant, or PDR. This is the data from the WHO, and you can look at the plot based on a number of data throughout different regions, and you can see that the red line is the threshold of 5%. And you can see that Southern Africa, Western Central Africa above, and Southern Africa is way above, it's above 10%. Eastern Africa, more than 15%. And Central and South America, also above 10%. So still a good news is that in Asia, it's still borderline 5%. So what the recommendation of WHO in terms of PDR or NNRTI pre-treatment drug resistant rate? I mean, if you in the setting that the prevalence of PDR less than 10%, in terms of cost effectiveness, baseline drug resistant testing may be not recommended. But individually, if they have money to pay, we should do baseline drug resistant testing, particularly in the group of MSM and the individual that had history that may have exposed to a potential multi-drug resistant partner. But for countries that you have at least or more than 10% PDR rate of NNRTI, if that affordable, or should be recommend to use non-NNRTI based regimen or do a baseline drug testing, resistant testing. Another special condition for how to treat with ART, the baseline CD4. The lower the CD4, below 200, you have a chance to see that individual have a very, very high viral load. So some regimen should not be used if avoidable. It's a ribavirin-based regimen, abacavir 3TC with some third drug like efavirenz, etazanavir booster, and the other non-nuc regimen, right, dolutegravir boosted with loptekavir, because this trial has been shown that with the lower CD4 and the highest viral load at this threshold, the chance to have success rate of viral suppression below 50 copy is lower than the other. Underlying disease like chronic kidney disease, particularly the creatinine clearance below 50, we should avoid TDF. And if available, we should go for abacavir or TAF. If that individual have a high cardiac risk, we should consider to avoid, although it's some controversial about abacavir from different cohort, but we prefer to avoid abacavir, lopinavir booster, and try to use other. In reality, I had shown you that people will live longer and age, as many of us as a normal life expectancy. So you're going to see a lot more of a comorbidity, and they have to take more pills. Even myself right now, I have to take, after 55 or 60 years old, you start to take a number of pills, either anti-lipid and other. So drug-drug interaction is one of the issue that we have to take into consideration. So you don't need to memorize because too many. But you can go, you have smartphone, you can go to, even Google can help you. But one of the websites that I think is most reliable is the HIV drug interaction.org from the Liverpool, University of Liverpool, and you can just put the name of the drug in, and you can see that whether we should use or we should not use or we should reduce the dose. And one big concern, and I think together with David Berger, I'm not sure he's here, he's around, we together with a Thai HIV specialist, within a few months we can correct a data of ergotism, why people taking boosted PI and they didn't have been well informed, and probably they didn't tell their family doctor or the pharmacist about they taking boosted PI, and when they have migraine headache and they take ergot, and you see this problem. So it's 20 of 23 need to be hospitalized, from 4 to 20 days, 3 gangrene, 2 need amputation, and 1 dead. So it's serious drug-drug interaction, because ergot is very commonly used in headache. The other consideration is the food effect. So you see that ideally you should have to take the regimen for the whole life. We should not have any regimen to be concerned about the meal, right? Whether empty stomachs or full stomach. And so dolutegravir or raltegravir integrase inhibitor is the most friendly. But efavirenz, if you want to avoid CNS toxicity, you need to be taken at an empty stomach. But a number of ARV need to be taken with food to make sure that the level is high enough. Lepivarine, efavirenz boost, all the booster regimen. Now, let me touch on a little bit. I think you have heard a lot throughout the conference. It's timing to start ART in patients with active OI. Again, just try to emphasize a bit that that's why is it important to make sure that you are starting ART that individual didn't have active opportunistic infection. In case of tuberculosis, if patient have a very advanced state of the disease, CD4 below 50, ART should be started within 2 weeks after anti-TB started. And this is the regimen that you should be thinking of, so I don't want to go into the detail. And how are you going to monitor patients when you put them on ART? The right one, the suitable one that they can afford or can be accessible. It's clearly that every visit we should ask, in a friendly manner though, in terms of whether they adhere the treatment very well. And viral load, I would say the must, at least twice a year until undetectable, and maybe once a year, because this is one of the early monitor to pick up failure, virological failure. If you wait until drug resistance develop and wait until CD4 drop and clinical progression, that is too late. And now, eventually, some of the patients have to be switched. There's a number of reasons to switch, mainly due to tolerability and toxicity, drug-drug interaction, some underlying diseases, and some of them might want to simplify the regimen that they're taking, from BID to once daily, from many pills to 1 pill. And more importantly is the drug treatment failure. Now, just some example that if you have people facing renal disease, you have to switch them from TDF to others. And from etasanavir or lopinavir boosted to integrase inhibitor or NNRTI. And if you're facing someone with a high lipid, mainly coming from boosted regimen or even efavirenz, you should consider to switch to integrase inhibitor or lepivarine. Now, switching when you're facing virological failure. When you see a person with ART failure, first thing you should do is to assess the patient in terms of treatment adherence, in terms of the past history of treatment, ART regimen, resistant history, and more importantly, not easy in some resource limited setting, is what would be available for the next regimen. And then the principle to select the next regimen is to make sure that you have 3 active ARV, because we aim for lead suppression below 50 copy cutoff. Now, I think many of us in this region, I think we're familiar with how to deal with NNRTI failure. But let me touch on one thing about the principle why NNRTI has a higher chance to develop failure because of the tail. If you look at this, with the 3 drugs in one pill or 3 drugs in the regimen, you see on the red curve, the tail is much longer for days or weeks compared to the other 2 NUC. And NNRTI is very easy to develop drug resistance as a single point mutation associated with high level of drug resistance. But if you go with the regimen that the tail is very similar, the chance to develop resistance is much less. But again, it's not that only. It really depends on the genetic drug resistance barrier. This is nucleoside. Just do a relatively plot to let you see that in red it means very easy to develop drug resistance. In blue is hard to develop drug resistance. But NNRTI is all very easy to develop drug resistance. When the challenge is that when you fail integrase inhibitor, particularly dolutegravir, I don't think they have any data available in clinical trial. So you have to use the principle, which I'm not going to go into detail, is that make sure that you have 3 active drugs. And one of the studies that very interesting study just recently presented at IS, that the Downing trial. The Downing trial is to look at the role of dolutegravir as a second-line option. And this is NNRTI-based failure. And you can see that the overall in blue is the dolutegravir with 2 NUC that, and compare with the standard of care in developing country in general is lopinavir boosted. And of course, even in the experiment cases, if you see a higher baseline viral load before you switch, you also have a lower level of response rate. So I mean, if you want to early detect failure and switch early is the key. The other study that from HIV-NAT and with Kirby, a trial that we initiate together, is that whether, because we in Thailand, lopinavir is still a first choice of second line, but it needs to be dosed BID, and so we have done a study to reduce the cost and shown that atazanavir booster with ritonavir 200 have a comparable response in the ITT non-inferiority. But if you look at a snapshot analysis, you can see that the lower dose superior than the higher dose. So in people that has been on lopinavir and well suppressed as a second line in Asia, we should consider to switch to atazanavir, a lower dose 200 milligrams. Now I'm going to switch this a bit. I say that integrase inhibitor failure is a challenge. But again, the principle, if you pick at least 2 or 3 active drugs for the next regimen, it should be fine. And this want to emphasize again that dolutegravir is a high genetic resistance barrier. So in people fail dolutegravir, in most of the trial, you won't see drug resistance, even sometimes 3TC. So it means non-adherence lead to biological failure, but not lead to drug resistance in the regimen. So I don't want to go into the detail, but it is principle that if the dolutegravir is still active and one active in RTI, so you may consider to combine another third drug and go for it. Now, there's a number of factors that the success of the viral resuppression in a no regimen is depend on a number of active drugs, the potency of the new drug, and the baseline viral load below 100,000 copy, CD4 above 100, and adherence and tolerability. So that's the chance to get resuppression rate if you consider this type of factor.
I can get 2 more minutes now.
Yes, so I'm going to end by the future trend and the future trend and some of the challenges. So you see that the number of people living with HIV is up to 37 million, and people still didn't come early. You look throughout the world right now, although you want to treat everyone, people, the median CD4 baseline in some countries, including Thailand, below 200, in high-income country below 350. So early finding cases is still a challenge. And the other thing is the regimen. I mean, how come we, if in the country that the PDR, the NRTI rate resistant above 10%, can we get dolutegravir? So the good news is that just a few months ago, 2 countries in Africa with the UNAIDS has announced, and another partner announced that the TLD, TDF, FTC, dolutegravir 1 pill a day will be available in many countries, up to 90 eligible countries. Thailand and a number of Malaysia is not listed in there, but we are probably eligible to get access to a generic dolutegravir regimen. And this is the last slide. So in country that we cannot get access to dolutegravir yet, but you have PDR rate below 10%, may consider to go with a 5-400 regimen. And again, if we want to win the game, we should make sure the treatment coverage is early enough and well coverage, and the prevention coverage is also good enough. Thank you very much for your attention.